They were the heroes from the future. Teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities, and though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
This week on the Legion Clubhouse, one series closes, another one opens?
Cosmic Boy number 4, Time Without End. Published March 1987. Written by Paul Levitz with art by Keith Giffen and Ernie Colon. Synopsis: get ready for a showdown at the end of time.
All right, let's take a look at the disappointing conclusion of Cosmic Boy, the miniseries.
Why you gotta go like that?
Because at the end of the miniseries, they're like, oh no, we must go talk to the Legion about this. Hey, boys and girls, go buy the Legion comic book, because that's how things work now post-crisis.
That's how things work pre-crisis, too. I mean, we had that whole Secrets of the Legion of Superheroes that led right back into R.J. Brand losing all of his money. I don't know. I wasn't disappointed by this issue, so I'll give you that.
I mean, it is not super disappointing, but I will say Night Girl gets her arm hurt all the time, and she might want to have somebody check that because it's the same arm every time. And
the medikit doesn't fully heal her arm. It stimulated her healing, but she's not 100%.
She may have a larger issue than just stumbling and falling and bumping her arm. She may have a serious medical issue that might keep happening because it's the same arm in every issue. And maybe it's easier to draw right hands than left hands, but I'm just saying she needs to go have Dr. Jimmel take a look at that, because otherwise she might succumb to something that Cosmic Boy won't be able to deal with in the future.
I feel like this is the same injury, and one of the things that I love about this issue is we see Night Girl just slamming into everything, smashing through walls, breaking down doors.
I like how her power fluctuates in that. Well, it's not quite dark, but my power should still be at 100%.
I mean, I'm strong enough. They've never really established how strong she is. So, I mean, even in complete darkness, is she Ultra Boy strong? Is she Timberwolf strong?
No, I just think it's funny that she says, it's almost dark. I should be at 100%.
Yeah, it's almost dark. I mean, it's a stupid weakness. Let's be honest. I mean, how does her power differentiate between artificial light and sunlight?
Yeah, what happened? I mean, she when they first made the substitute clubhouse, they were in a cave because her powers would work at full force in a cave. By extension, if she's inside of a building without any windows, like the time trapper is messing with their minds, does that mean her powers are at 100%? Or, as you said, does the fact that you have a 5600K light bulb inside the building diminish her powers? And really, the 1-2 combo in this shouldn't be Lightning Lass and Shrinking Violet. The 1-2 combo should be Night Lass and Shadow Lass. Those two are the 1-2 combination. Shadow Lass envelops everybody in shadow. She's inside the shadow, and she unleashes, irreparable harm onto the bad guys. That's the duo that we need in this series.
Not out of peak. Absolutely. And the fact that we've only seen it once is absolutely ridiculous. But
yeah, I mean, maybe they realize that the duo is OP, but maybe not.
I don't know about that.
I mean, if you can have a fastball special, then you can have Shadow Lass and Night Girl teaming up.
If the Legion can literally have a team that has 3 Superboys, another Superboy, and a girl who is essentially Superboy, there's no such thing as overpowered. But I really like the combo in this issue of Cosmic Boy as Brains and Night Girl as Brawn.
I mean, it works. Yeah.
It feels like 80s progressive, where it's just like, hey, this is a what is that movie? The Woman's Work kind of thing. The
9 to
thing
5?
where, no, the other one, Working Girl.
Oh,
where she takes over as CEO of the company, and people are like, "Oh my God, girls are good for something." Throughout this issue, we see the time trapper putting obstacle after obstacle, monsters, walls, a toilet,
yeah, the toilet,
all of,
the time trapper's toilet. Ooh, gross.
yeah, you don't ever want to be in the time trapper's
I mean,
dungeon. Is
just
all I'm
imagine
saying.
how much stuff is backed up in there.
Right?
It's got to be
Literal.
centuries upon centuries of backed up stuff. I do like when
That is the literal Iron Curtain.
yeah, I do like when Night Girl just punches the crap out of the Dementor or whatever it is,
Yeah,
the creepy squid monster, and just
whatever that is.
explodes it across a giant 3/4 page panel. Is pretty
Just
gross and
beautiful.
interesting.
Just pow, pow. And it's neat to have this team and to just have her, because she comes up out of sewage, and it's this neat, almost Wolverine moment where she comes up and she's like, "Oh, I don't think so." And she goes, douche. It's beautiful. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I actually, this is something that I kind of have to chalk up to an addition to the art team, because this issue features Pablo Marcos inking Giffen and Cologne. And I feel like it, art wise, it really does make a difference. I feel like it kind of shaves off some of the rougher edges that I'd been having problems with, because we know we had Giffen like layouts, and then Cologne working finished art on those layouts. And Pablo Marcos, I feel like, is really the missing piece of the puzzle. Also, I'm pretty sure that's a beholder that tries to eat Cosmic Boy.
Yeah, it's not quite a beholder because beholder's all eyes. This one's all tentacles. So it's like I'm sure at this point Wizards of the Coast has already started issuing litigations onto people for doing too much D&D stuff. Also,
can you do like retroactive 40 years ago?
I know, right? There's an interesting bit of inner dialogue in Night Girl. At one point, she goes, "I wish I hadn't teased Rock about his worrying about history. Now that I've seen Trapper, I understand how weird time travel can get." And Rock was per, and it's like, wait, what? He's per Degaton? That would explain all the time travel and Rock's obsession with time travel. So I think we have an interesting. Well, I mean, the very next page, Night Girl is fighting Nazis and Roman soldiers and stormtroopers and all sorts of people. So.
Literal stormtroopers. And somebody who I'm pretty sure is Thor's third cousin.
That one with the horns and the sword?
With the horns, yeah. That's Thor's cousin. His name is Bjorn. Bjorn Bjorg from the Auto Bjorn. But
all I will say is it's a good thing that Roman is wearing underpants.
I don't even.
Because she punches them and they all go flying. And of course, the Roman soldier or the Genghis Khan guy, I think it's more Roman than Genghis Khan. But his skirt goes flying up as he flies towards the camera. And all I can say is it's a good thing he's wearing underpants.
You know, it's a Night Girl battle scene, equal opportunity panty shots. I feel like the artists.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just glad he's doing it.
Throughout the 60s. Yeah. It's like.
I think we do see for the most part, Rock is somewhat ineffective in this issue. I mean, he does one good thing where he used his blood to magnetize himself and go flying out, but otherwise he doesn't do a whole lot. This is a Night Girl issue, and I'm kind of down for that. I'm kind of down for her going in and punching and smashing and doing all the cool things that you expect in a superhero comic. And Rock is just kind of like, well, I made it to the throne room same time she did, and we beat Time Trapper by mere grains of sand.
He does use his springy powers to literally lock a few grains of sand.
Yeah.
Because the Time Trapper, we got to give him credit. I mean, he's a magenta bedsheet of his words. If that thing runs out, then they're dead. It doesn't run out because Cosmic Boy clearly cheats. By the way, I'm not sure what is in that glass, because he literally twists glass with his cosmic magnetic powers.
Probably from sand, and impure sand will probably have little bits of iron in it. Or if it's, we see it as clear and blue here, there could be an impurity in the glass. That's how you get a lot of colored glasses, is by throwing in, green glass. You throw in some metal into that. So I don't know if
make his powers useless against the color yellow. No, wait, that's Green Lantern.
I don't know if Cosmic Boy has his powers. I know he has the power of magnetism. So does it work on anything that can be magnetized, even with a weak magnetic force, right? So, like,
Mhm.
can he control gravity if he concentrates hard enough, or is his stuff only limited to metals? And is it only certain metals that can be magnetized? Because does it work against
Right.
aluminum? Does it work against, I don't know, is copper magnet? Can copper be magnetized? I don't know.
Copper is, I want to say, weakly ferromagnetic, but
Oh,
the interesting
the answer is
thing.
that copper itself is not magnetic or is only slightly magnetic. So,
Oh,
yeah. So,
yeah.
that's again, if we're talking about undefined powers,
Mhm.
if he's working on magnetism, then magnetism is one of the big forces of the universe. And he should be
It
able to
is.
do some pretty amazing things.
See, and it's kind of like the same question you have to ask about Magneto. They are empowered by one of the fundamental forces. And so the way they use their powers, even when they use them cleverly, like I'm going to draw all the metal into your brain, doopty doo, it really feels like they're underutilizing the power of magnetism
And
because, in a lot of ways,
it could also be that in the time period that these were written, yeah, we didn't understand
true.
what the four forces were, but did we really understand the four forces, the weak forces and the strong forces?
I think it's a question of comic book physics
Oh yeah,
because
sure. It's wave your hand and
once
ignore this stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But once you get to the point where people start thinking about, hey, what does magnetism mean? It doesn't mean just I can pick up a piece of metal and chuck it at you by going sproing. And by the way, sproing just mm,
I know you
every
say that
time
every time. You say that
I get
every time, and
madder
it's
and madder
still
and
cool
madder.
every time we see him
It's
using his
never been
blood
cool.
to ricochet down the hallway like a
See,
pinball.
but he's got, I mean, there's metal in his costume. He's got metal cuffs and metal belt rings and stuff. But yeah, I do like that, and I like the fact that he has to think creatively within the understanding of comic book physics. But this issue makes a big point of he has to rocket himself out of that trap because the time trapper used non-magnetic glass and was going to kill him. And then immediately the time trapper is shown to have some sort of magnetic force in his hourglass. So it really does feel like Time Trapper is toying with them.
Yes.
And when he smashes the hourglass and just laughs and laughs and laughs, his evil laugh, that's terrifying to me, especially the point where he says in this issue, if they only knew how long I've been toying with them, because my friend's foreshadowing is your key to quality literature, by the way.
Yeah,
So
and
write that down. Put a pin in there.
somehow he has pulled Superboy out of time, even though the crisis eliminated that. So that is something that we'll have to address in a future episode. But certainly, when the time trapper says, "I am shutting off time travel forever," that also feels very much like I. This is one of those things with Crisis, and I know that Crisis meant well and that they really had good intention on trying to bring the young kids in without alienating the olds and really trying to renovate or rejuvenate the company. But in the
Mhm.
process, they created so many, like, they didn't really think things through fully.
Yeah.
We've already seen what happened with Hawkman, but when you also look at the Legion of Superheroes and you're like, yeah, what about the Legion of Superheroes? They really shouldn't exist if Superboy didn't exist. How are you going to deal with that post crisis? And we're already
Next
starting to
episode.
see I know, but we're already starting to see the cracks appear in what DC wanted to do with Crisis. How do we take the Legion, which is super popular, which literally shouldn't exist, just like and this is what I think you were trying to allude to a few moments ago, was
Mhm.
when you start poking at, hey, wait a minute, how come he broke out of glass a minute ago with his magnetism and now he's twisting
Mhm.
glass with magnetism? The minute that you start thinking about comic books,
Yeah.
everything just falls apart because there's no way that you're going to have, and with a few exceptions, where you're going to have somebody that understands, oh, here's what magnetism really is and here's how it really works. And I'm going to use that effectively. No, it's all got to be hand wavy. So while it may be infuriating today to look at this stuff and say, man, they weren't really thinking. Back in the day,
Mhm.
kids weren't really thinking either. And they're just reading this stuff and going, holy cow, they've got Superboy hidden in a locked room at the end of time. And then you're like, ho ho. Also
Yeah,
hate
and
taste.
this
So there you go.
hate tapes. This is one of those things that the Superboy revelation came out of an unexpected creative choice, because at the time that the Legionnaire or the Legion creative team was, writing their book,
Yeah.
they
John
did not
Byrne is
realize
doing his
that
thing.
Byrne was going to come in and do that.
Yeah,
But
and I think
like,
I don't know when the publishers all decided to sit down and have their big editorial meetings. Like now we hear, especially on the Marvel side, but it also happens on the DC side, where they bring their top talent in and they spend a week or whatever it is just hashing out what is everybody's storylines are going to be like for the next year and those kinds of things. And I wonder if that was something that was not in place at this time with DC, because I think Legion was still at this time part of the Superman editorial group. So at least at that point, there should have been some conversations going on. But it really felt like maybe John Byrne was like, "You want John Byrne? I'm going to give you John Byrne, and it's going to be the John Byrneist stuff. And whatever I do, I don't care how that affects the rest of your comics." Or maybe Legion of Superheroes, Paul Levitz and everybody was sitting there and going, "Oh yeah, this isn't going to be a problem. This is great. We got John Byrne. Wait a minute, Superboy was never around. Let's see if we can figure that one out." The other thing they could
yeah,
have done is just ignored the whole thing.
they could have, but that I think would have been another problem with suspension of disbelief. When you say there's no Superboy, but the Legion is literally contingent on being part of a Superboy story, you do have that problem. By the way, Legion is under Karen Berger. Superman is still under Julius Schwartz, I
So
think,
this
or
is two different
just
editorial
leaving.
groups. So yeah,
Yeah.
so two different
Legion
editorial
doesn't
groups. So
become
yeah,
part of the Superman group until after the way to my understanding, until after volume 4, and then we start having some problems in volume 4. But we do get into this issue. What really comes out of this is that it is a 4-issue side story that basically is setting up an upcoming arc in the Legion of Superheroes book. So
but
when you
isn't it?
say this is how comics are now, that yeah, it absolutely is. This
Yeah,
ties directly into Legion 37 and
yeah.
38.
But it's also,
So it
well, 36 is where they're really trying to say, "Hey, join us in Legion 36 for the continuation of the story." And as we'll find out in the next segment, it's really only the last page of the story. Um,
Right.
but so
But
here's the other
37
thing.
picks up from there and takes the storyline here, and that question of how, what, who, where, what is the time trapper talking about,
Yeah,
comes to the forefront in Legion 37.
yeah. I I want to say there are ways that you can, if you can kind of hand wave superpowers and you can hand wave a lot of things. Superman has already said that he's, really not coming back to the future. That he's happy hanging out where he's at. I think they could have just left it and just slowly, without saying, "Hey, let's have another retcon of how the Legion of Superheroes was formed and it was all based on Superman." Because for the last 36 issues of Legion, there have been little to no mention of the fact that uh, Legion of Superheroes was founded because they believed in the heroes of the past. Uh, so there's some hand wavy things that you can do with this, but this really feels like post crisis that you start to see the beginning of the end of this Legion.
You definitely do. And I think part of the problem is that there was extensive editorial input to the crisis, because Wolfman was working with Dick Giordano, who was the editor in chief at DC at the time. Dick was actually working with them and inking Perez on a couple of issues of Crisis. But when you come out of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I think this is the weakness of it, and this is the weakness of many of the following big crossovers, is the Crisis says, okay, these are the books we're publishing now, and these are what we're going to do with the books we're publishing now. But it didn't necessarily say, hey, what about the books we're not publishing? What about Hawkman, notably, is a big problem? Or
Mm-hmm.
what about going forward? When we eliminate that Earth 2 reality, we have to eliminate chunks of those characters, but we're also moving the Justice Society and the All Star Squadron to the unified new Earth. So then we have to go through and say, well, could this story, will this story ever have happened? And the problem with the Legion came out of that one decision. And that's the point where as much as I hate to say it, I feel like a modern editorial down perspective of, look, this is what you can do, and at the end of your run, you need to put the toys back in the box. I really feel like that might have benefited the Legion in the long run. Whereas at the time, it looks like the thought process was, here's the big star who's going to revamp and save Superman.
Mm-hmm. Which,
And
quite
you do
honestly,
get,
they did need that.
yeah. And I feel like ignoring that question of the Legion in 87 was unthinkable because the crisis was supposed to repair everything. It was designed to fix everything, and it couldn't. We know it couldn't. And you run into the issue where sometimes you have to see what have we missed or what have we not thought about. And the reworking of Wonder Girl, the reworking of Hawkman, the reworking of all of these character bits that had to be put back into place, and then retroactively building in things like, Vrildox's Legion, building in things like, oh, well, how was there a Superboy? Where was there a
Mm-hmm.
Superboy?
Mm-hmm.
They felt like they had to do that for any of those active books. And remember, in 87, the Legion is still a big hit.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
what
one
I'm
of
saying.
DC's big
This is
titles.
one of
You
those things
couldn't
that
just-
they didn't really think through, and they should have
Right.
spent some more time. And that's why I was, when originally I thought they should have been all part of the same editorial group. It's clear if there's two editorial groups, it's just like the Avengers and the X-Men titles. They're not run by the same people, and so whatever's going on in the Avengers does not affect the world of the X-Men. Same way here. Overall, for 4 issues, I mean, it sets up a little something, but they had to go a long way to
I
set
will
this up.
argue-
This could have been a 2-issue, could have been a side story, could have been
Mhm.
a one-shot, could have been a lot of things. It could have been part of the main Legion book where we just spend a little bit of time with Rock and Lita at the end of World.
Yeah, and I feel it's kind of like the Legionnaires 3 book that we reviewed previously. Is part of the reason this happened is the Legion was very, very popular. They wanted more Legion
Mhm.
on the stand. And
Yeah.
I do agree with you that this is just set up, but I absolutely disagree because 37 and 38 change the very nature of the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, but we're not there yet. So
Literally
we're literally talking about these 2 issues. So
Right, but you're saying this is setting up nothing. It's not setting up nothing. It's setting up something that becomes huge. So I would definitely say
okay,
that
so
the setup is questionable.
So here's the next thing that I would say in response to that. If this is setting up something huge for the Legion, it needs to be in the Legion book. Because, again, if we're waiting till the last issue and a half of this 4-issue miniseries to really set up this big reveal, then I think somebody didn't think things through. It's one of those things that if this is that big to the Legion, then it needs to be part of the Legion title. That I don't know what the numbers are, but I would imagine that Legion of Superheroes sold a heck of a lot more than Cosmic Boy, and that people who are reading the Legion are like, huh, what now? Where am I going to go find Cosmic Boy number 1 through 4? That's just my side. It's a fine story, but I think there's a lot of stuff that was wasted, and it could have been a lot shorter.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers.
Legion of Superheroes Volume 3, number 36. Peace, Quiet, and Impending Doom. Published July 1987. Written by Paul Levitz with art by Greg LaRocque, Mike DiCarlo, and Arnie Starr. Synopsis: Superboy is gone. How can the Legion survive as their very history unravels around them?
All right, we are back into the Legion of Superheroes, Peace, Quiet, and Impending Doom. It's election time again.
It's a big John Byrne cover.
It's election
which is
time.
his way of saying, sorry, I wrecked your Legion.
I wonder if he was contracted that he had to do a certain number of covers for DC as part of his Superman takeover.
See, and the thing is, Byrne always said that he was a fan of the Legion. He was a fan of, the Superman titles and, the Legion stuff. So I don't know. I
Well, if he was
I have
such a
no idea.
fan, he should have known that by rebooting Superman the way he did, he would have ruined the Legion.
I
Also,
will slap you so
also,
hard your children fall down. Okay.
also, hey, Suge, I can't predict how this election is going to come out, but that's literally your power. I know, but I got to go wash my hair. That's what we're getting in this issue. A lot of politicking for who will be the
Yeah.
next leader of the Legion. And what do you think of Polar Boy as leader? Because I don't think he's earned it.
I think the expectation that that Jacques has, Invisible Kid has at the end of the issue,
Oh yeah, about the new
when
guy.
he says, "Yeah, I voted for you because I always vote for the underdog." I really do feel like if you've been a Legion fan for as long as we have, or if you've been reading through all of these issues, it's satisfying to me to see Polar Boy make it to the big leagues and get to be the leader. But you see, the thing that's going to come out of that is once you have this character and he gets his greatest wish, you have two options. Either he's going to do really great or it's all going to fall apart. Either
Yeah.
way, I feel like you've got a good story, but I feel like this is the moment where Polar Boy really peaks because
Oh, right
he
here
was
is when he
rejected.
peaks. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's rejected from the team. He builds his own place, builds his own team, gets respect of a sort. Eventually, Giffen comes along and kicks that respect right in the gazonga, and all these bad things happen to him. But really, what it breaks down to is if you picked up a Polar Boy issue, if you picked up Adventure 3055 in 1966, you read the Legion, you read the Legion, you read the Legion. All of a sudden, this issue Polar Boy is elected leader. Not, I might add, not just by the Legionnaires, but this is another one of the leadership. This is one of the leadership elections that was actually decided by the fans.
Oh
So
really?
when they said, yeah, the leadership elections from the fourth one to the 18th Legion, this is the 17th, by the way. There's only one more Legion election in the original continuity. But up until from the fourth one all the way up until the end, these are done by the readers. So the readers of Legion of Superheroes, granted only like 400 or 500 of them, but a plurality of the readers of Legion of Superheroes voted that Polar Boy should be the leader. He gets, I think it was 419, 419 total ballots. Polar Boy got 49 votes, so he got about 12% of the total vote in a team of 22. So,
Wow.
eh,
Almost
you know,
almost like real elections today.
right? But it also does give you an understanding that at least, you know, a portion of the readers were invested in Polar Boy making it to the big leagues, taking his leadership of the subs and turning it into leadership of the Legion. And I feel like
Well, I mean, if this is
it
his
does
peak,
feel like a big
then
moment
things
for him.
can't go up. So things are going to have to go bad for him because you say this is where Polar Boy peaks.
Well,
So
also, this is 1987, and the comic industry goes nowhere but down from 87. Everybody gets brutalized, killed. Wonder Woman gets fired. Batman gets his back broken. Superman gets beaten down by the giant booger monster. All of these things are about to happen. So we're at the point where this is the end of the happy ending comics, ladies and gentlemen.
I
From
I
here on in, it's all downhill.
I'm wondering. I think it's weird that they're going to continue to keep calling their kid Validus.
They they don't continue calling him
I mean,
Validus,
they
but
definitely call him Validus in this issue.
they do
Oh,
call him in this issue. Yeah,
I don't mind
it
staying
does.
at home with young Grim and
Validus,
Validus.
Graham and Validus. Yeah,
Yeah,
perfectly good Winathian names. Graham and Validus and Jimothy and
I
Timifer.
just think that's weird, especially
It is.
when the team and them specifically have major issues with Validus, and so I would probably come up with a more appropriate name for a little baby who has just come into your possession.
Yeah.
And maybe guide
I
him
would
right,
say
because if this kid grows up and he's like, Mom, Dad, why did you name me after one of the Fatal Five? Oh, well, that's an interesting conversation we're going to have. And then the
right.
kid finds out that he's named, and because he is Validus, and then becomes Validus. So they are creating their own vicious circle by continuing to name this kid Validus.
Think about Brainiac and Lightning Lass
Well,
and some of the
Brainiac is
people
the
who
same
were
way,
actually
right?
close to Invisible Kid, whom Validus killed on
Yeah,
panel, crushed
yeah,
to death.
yeah.
I would agree with you. They do not continue calling him Validus all the way through, thankfully. But yeah, for some reason in this issue, they're still calling him Baby Validus,
Mm-hmm.
which seems invalid us
What
to
happened
me.
to the Green Arrow celebrity tours? We got some other guy giving the celebrity tours through.
Did that guy get executed in
I can't remember
the
if he
Batman?
died or what happened, but I do remember that there was that Green Arrow tours that
Yeah,
was,
Ollie 3 Queen
yeah,
was doing tours, but in the you remember the issue where somebody shot Laurel
yeah,
Kent,
yeah, yeah.
and then we found out that a guy was murdered and he was a descendant of Bruce Wayne. That's the last time I remember hearing from Ollie. Did Ollie 3 Queen die in that issue where somebody was murdering
I don't
the
know, but
descendants of
I just found it very
the Justice League?
odd that a running gag suddenly does a swerve and the Oliver Queen you're expecting to be there is no longer there, and it's like, okay, what happened? Somebody must be mad. Also,
Maybe Ollie, got tired of being
he could be.
shot at
Maybe
and
it's his day off.
tired.
It could be his day off. We don't know, but I just thought that was odd. We also learned a little
Maybe
bit more about how Earth was hypnotized because they're dismantling the chemical factories, and
Mhm.
we also found out what Universo's plan was. He wanted to go back to Oa, to Oa, to Oa.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, and for listeners who don't know, Oa is where the Green Lantern HQ is at, and that they keep
Yep.
their big battery. The Green Lantern battery ring is located
The power
there.
battery. Yep.
Yeah. So, I wonder if the Legion members are aware of this as well, because we've had one Green Lantern in the Legion at this point,
We've
right? Or am I
we
thinking
have
the Brian
had
Michael Bendis version?
we have not had a Green Lantern in the Legion. The Legion and the United Planets rather, and the Guardians of Oa have a non-interference agreement.
Mm,
We saw back in it was I think Legion 295, January of 83. Vidar
yeah.
Universo
Yeah.
was Green Lantern
Right.
of Earth's sector
Right.
years ago. And because I think it may have been because Vidar himself was evil, the United Planets basically
Told
requested
them to
or
stay out of
told,
our sector, stay out of our
yeah, basically
neighborhood.
stay away. But yeah, and that is interesting because it does the Oa connection is another thing
Yeah.
that I'm not saying, foreshadowing is your key to quality literature or anything, but
Yeah.
the Owen, reference there does call back to Vidar having been Green Lantern. And it does give you that little moment of, oh, I wonder what could he possibly, what?
Yeah. Maybe one
When?
day they'll find it, the Owen connection.
The
Also, let's see what
lover
else is in
dream.
here.
It's not easy being Green Lantern.
Wildfire has a new girlfriend, and that's not going to upset Lightning Lass at all.
You mean Timberwolf?
I mean, Timberwolf. They're the exact same. Quizlet becomes the Yoda or Mr. Miyagi.
So wonderful. To Wildfire. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really appreciate taking the weirdness of Quizlet and having Wildfire wander into Quizlet's little cube, and of course, thanks to the transdimensional technology, literally your Legion room can be whatever it is. So he has this weird polydimensional void, and Wildfire is like, "Could you help me do something?" And Quizlet's like, "Sure," and he blows up his suit, just kaboom. And then all of a sudden, he starts forming the anti-energy into a solid body.
Yeah. That's really weird.
That's it. It's not weird. It's actually brilliant because what we know about Quizlet is that Quizlet comes from a part of, I don't know, the universe, part of whatever you want to call it, where the laws of physics are different. That's why when he occupies something, it crumbles to dust. His energies are not particularly compatible with the Legion and this part of the world. And if he ever exits his ship for too long, he won't be able to stay because he himself can't exist for long. So he's this tiny astronaut, right?
It's almost like
But he's
antimatter
also,
and matter can't exist in the
and
same
he's this
space.
crazy little alien guy who teaches Wildfire to use
Yeah,
his anti powers.
it's
But
pretty cool.
the thing that's best about it is the dialogue where he's like, Quizlet knows you miss human body. Very silly to let it go boom. I feel like just that you're right about the Miyagi thing. It is absolutely, it feels very Miyagi. It feels like this person from another, part of the universe, from another culture, whatever you want to call it, coming in and teaching Wildfire what's perfectly natural to him. And then, hey, this is what I do with energy. But I really do love that because Quizlet doesn't get to do a lot other than show up and go boop de boop boop or poop a poop a poop, whatever his sound effect is. And then you have him say something silly like, "Oh, Quizlet, have much fun." I like putting him in a different light. That's the fun of Levitz's Legion.
I think the
At
problem
least
that I
at this
have is that we still don't know what happened to him
Yeah, we don't.
between the hypnotized and him just showing up in his little
Yeah,
bedroom. So that's a little weird. Also,
he's got 38 members
Brainiac finally realizes he needs to get out and touch grass.
or water,
Well,
and that the loss of Ron Vidar came at a terrible time for this series because it was 27, so it's almost 10 issues ago. And his only real friend, his best, closest non-legionnaire friend dies. And now, only now are they actually able to put Ron, to
I think
rest and do the
for
thing.
Brainiac, he's had a lot going on, right? Like
Yeah.
he had to deal with the whole Sensor Girl, confusing it with Supergirl. So he's got his obsessive compulsive going on.
Right.
Then Ron
And then he
Vidar
had to
being
be
killed.
hypnotized.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
Ron Vidar being killed and him being hypnotized. We've already talked about Brainiac's mental condition before, and that he is in a precarious way. And I think that this is just more of his PTSD showing up.
It may be, but it may also be an attempt to humanize him because you remember when he and Dawnstar were trapped on the planet of coal and he had to come to terms with the fact that outside he didn't pay attention to his Legion training and outside of a technological setting, he nearly
Yeah, he's
died
kind
from
of
his own
yeah,
foolishness.
yeah,
Yeah, he was essentially useless. He was
yeah.
running around, nearly died, was bitten by mosquitoes or whatever. There is a kind of a growing humanization of Brainiac here that I I will say I hope continues. But it's neat to see it. And he does say at the end of his pages, maybe it's time for me to go home.
Yeah, touch grass. Get out more.
Right. But this
Yeah.
is the thing. I'm not saying that maybe it is time for young Quirrell to maybe quit the Legion, doing the thing that he's been doing since he was 14 to distract him from having emotions, going through all of this, having
What
multiple
year
mental
did
breakdowns.
Star Trek 3 and 4 come out?
I want to say 2 was 82 and I want to say 3 was 85.
Star Trek 4, 1986. So if
Okay.
Brainiac suddenly decides that he needs to go back and have his human size expunged in, some kind of a ritual, man, that feels very much like what Spock went through when he was reborn in 3 and then trying to get his brain back in 4. So, yeah.
This feels kind of like the opposite to me. This feels like he's trying to embrace his humanness or his emotions because his
Oh,
emotions
no,
keep
that's
getting
where
the
he's
better
at.
of him.
Yeah. At the end of this one, he's
Yeah.
like, maybe I need to embrace the nature in the world and less technology. So it's a fine
And
issue.
we
I just wish
commented on it.
I just wish that at the end of this issue, it would be more than, man, we need to go find Cosmic Boy. Too bad he's visiting the 20th century. No, he's been back. And then they go into the hospital and he's like, hey, you guys, something big's about to happen. And they're like, oh. And then that's the end of the issue. And then they give us the big tease for next issue.
But you notice that the big tease in the last page of this issue does echo, in fact, directly quotes part of the end of Cosmic Boy #4 for the people who didn't read that series.
Again, so that then it goes back to either the Cosmic Boy should have been a backup in this one, or it should have been the main story in this one.
I feel like all of your problems would have been absolutely solved if they had yellow triangles on the cover.
No, because I don't. No. I don't think so, because I don't have a problem with Cosmic Boy #4 saying, now go read Legion of Superheroes #36 to find out what happens next, when literally you have to wait till the end of the issue and Cosmic Boy is just lying there in bed and going, hey guys, I got to talk to you about stuff. Meanwhile, Brainiac, maybe I should go touch grass. No, it has nothing to do with, triangles on the cover. Triangles on the cover become important when you have multiple storylines going on at the same time and there's a reading order for those. And because these issues have come out essentially concurrently or right around the same time with one another, there's really no question as to what order you should read stuff in this. It's only when you have the story in Superman and then you have to go and continue the story in Action Comics, and then you have to go and continue the story in what were the other two? There was Action Comics, Superman World Tomorrow,
Adventures of Superman, and Man of Tomorrow.
Yeah. So you've got those four things. It's only when those are coming out all on the same week or all over the course of a month together, and the story continues from one to the other, that you need those triangles. This is not a continuation. In my mind, Cosmic Boy #4 into 36 is not a continuation of the story. It is literally a bumper note that says, hey, there's this other story that took place. You don't have to go read it because Cosmic Boy's here now telling you. It has nothing to do with it. Other than that, we need to wrap it up. That wraps it up for this installment of the Legion Clubhouse. Matthew, what did we learn this week?
We learned that Cosmic Boy may be a genius, but when time was trapped, he didn't think to ask himself, is it the time trapper?
I think we also learned that we all should get out and touch a little grass.
And most importantly, we learned that all the Musclehead guys had to do repair work on Legion headquarters, which seems absolutely unfair.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. We will be back next time to see Man versus Boy. Until then, take care.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.